taking a mighty.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the South Star Classroom, episode 237. Unbelievable. How many episodes did the Ape Like Hands have, Charles?
I don't know. I can go check, though. We might have surpassed. We may have surpassed.
Nice. I love that. I love that. All right.
Welcome. Then when you do that, they're going to be like, well, how many national tours this South? You know what I mean? So
yeah, I get it.
God dang, man, why you got to talk that smack? We're just starting the show. We just started, baby. Come on, man.
Man,
I love both these shows. I co-created them both, so you know.
He's a conflicted party. He's got a conflict of interest. All right, let's move on. Welcome to the show, everybody. Today, we're here every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. So thanks everybody for joining us. Please like and share the stream as appropriate. Definitely make sure if you're watching that you chatting along with us. We'll do our best to interact with you. We've got a very special guest today on the show. We'll be bringing him up shortly. But before we do, I wanted to take just a minute or two, not too long. We know some of you can ramble. To do a quick check-in. How's your week been, Jubilee?
My week has been great. Thank you for asking and throwing it to Omar. Won't get me
wow.
today.
Wow. God dang. All right.
That was just to make sure that smile that Charles has on his face does not turn into any other comment or anything. So there's that.
Y'all like sibling rivalry, man. You're
I
like
said
brother and sister on this show, man. And I feel like the middle child who loves you both, who's got to be able to like make the family work. David's dad, clearly. Because Charles and I love getting into trouble when David's gone, man. David's like the serious dad of the show and stuff. It's the last week of school. There's a lot of updates that I'll be giving folks as they come in over the year. But real quick, I may have talked about it last time, but there was a very interesting report out of Texas. We're going to be talking about Oakland today. But 76,000 missing students, ladies and gentlemen, from Texas public schools. And you're like, what the heck does that mean? It's like those 76,000 are not in public schools, charter schools, home schools, or private schools. They're just stone cold gone, like out of the system. And Mike Morath, clearly our commissioner, was asked a ton about it. And he didn't really have much of an answer. Granted, I think that a lot of teachers have taken to social media and basically are like, well, like Texas is so deeply underfunded. We're like 47th in the state, and we've got billions upon billions upon billions in reserves, that this is becoming very much a conspiracy theory that Mike Morath and Greg Abbott are looking at a privatization of Texas education. Now, personally, I'd be shocked if Morath was about that, because I like Mike a lot, and I think he's a really smart dude, and I think he really cares about Texas kids. Greg Abbott's made no qualms about like privatization of education. That is public knowledge. It is out there. So I'll keep folks updated on those things, but interesting stuff coming out of Texas.
Yep. Definitely.
How the rest of y'all?
Future show.
Yeah, dude.
Dr. Cole, how are we doing?
I'm well, man. I'm excited for our guests. I have some history with our guests. I'm very happy to see him, and reminds me of being at school board meetings till 1 or 2 in the morning, us sitting next to each other and just arguing. Always respectful, but we've had our battles, and but I have a great deal of respect for him. So I'm looking forward to welcoming our guests and making sure he feels welcome.
Great. All right. Well, let me set the table real quick before we bring our guest up and do an introduction. So today we're going to be talking about Oakland Unified School District. It's a large, comprehensive school district that essentially, mirrors the boundaries of the city. Like so many other California and other districts, it's had its fair share of challenges. It's definitely going through a time right now around its finances, around its budget, around enrollment, and facing a potential takeover by the county of Alameda or maybe the state. I'm not sure. I'm sure our guest can fill us in there. Looking at a school district with large projected structural deficits. So essentially, it's a district that's running where it is spending way more than it's bringing in. There's definitely a conversation to be said around cash and what happens there. There's also some stuff happening right now. We have a new interim superintendent who's no longer interim. We'll get into that a little bit more, but the former superintendent, Kyla Johnson Trammell, was relieved of her duties by this board, kind of in what I see as a very shady maneuver. And this new superintendent has come in with not a whole lot of public input. And a couple of weeks ago was just, made regular superintendent, I think at an 11 p.m., closed session or something like that. So I have questions about governance, about
there's stuff going on, dude.
Oh, dude, it's about transparency. And so we're gonna bring up our guest right now, and if you want to bring him up, Charles, and I'll do a quick intro, and I'll let him introduce himself and make some opening comments. Welcome to the stage, Director Mike Hutchinson. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me here today.
All right. Well, let me read off a couple things about your accolades real quick. You were born and raised in Oakland. Your family has a lot of long history ties to Oakland and OUSD. You've been attending board meetings for decades, and now you've recently been elected, and I believe you're running again for election, so we can talk about that. Volunteered in schools, co-founded Oakland Public Education Network. These are just the public-facing things. I'm sure there's a lot more, but when I think of Oakland Unified and people that are ride or die for OUSD, I think of you. And I think you're also recently you're a father, right? Congratulations.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Mike, we're adults now, Mike.
Yes, first-time father. Yes.
Congratulations, brother.
Thank you. Almost 5 months old.
Yeah. So the floor is yours if you want to make some introductory comments, and then we'll get into the the questions.
So first off, thanks for having me. Like Dr. Cole kind of hinted to, some of us have crossed paths and even swords in the past. And I always appreciate any opportunity to talk about OUSD and talk about Oakland, and being able to expand my base or have a wider spectrum of people comfortable with me has really meant a lot in my time on the school board. So I think really quickly, I just want to set the table for everything. And then if I start to ramble too much, give me a hook. Because my life really feels like the Truman Show, especially over the last few years, where a lot of what's happened has been unimaginable. And so just to kind of set the table, OUSD, Oakland Unified School District, was taken over by the state in 2003. And during that time of being taken over, a lot of things happened in OUSD, and we really found ourselves in a death spiral. The two schools I had worked at for over a decade were closed in mass school closures in 2012. And that kind of led me away from working directly with youth into this other work, which led me to the school board. And for a lot of years, not only were we in receivership, where we didn't have full local control of our district, we also became the city in California with the highest rate of charter schools. And on top of that, a school board that was mismanaging our finances. And we just found ourselves as a district in this death spiral. Thankfully, after almost a decade of organizing, the community pushed back against the school board and those policies. And in the 2020 and 2022 school board elections, the community threw out all 7 incumbent school board directors and elected a new board. And that's when I came onto the school board in 2020. I had to run again for re-election in 2022 because I was redistricted, a whole different story. And then in January of 2023, we found ourselves with an entirely new board. I was elected board president. I chaired the Budget and Finance Committee, and working closely with Superintendent Dr. Johnson Trammell and our Chief Business Officer, Lisa Grant Dawson, we came up with a plan to get OUSD out of receivership and to launch a community process to decide how we wanted to restructure our district going forward. It started to pay dividends. We left receivership in June of 2025, last year, after 22 years in state receivership, and we were actually able to leave a year early. And where we sat in the fall of 2024, before the new school board came in from those elections, we were 6 months away from leaving state receivership. We had extended our superintendent's contract for 3 more years to lead us through a transition. And we had approved the 3 R's restructuring plan and launched a year-long series of community conversations to decide how to re-envision and rebuild our district going forward. Then, a few months later, the new school board from the 2024 elections came in. A new school board majority was formed. And since then, everything has been destroyed that we had built up. And we now find ourselves facing probably the most extreme crisis we've ever faced as a district. They forced out our long-term superintendent. They forced out our chief business officer. They have not developed any budget plans going forward, negotiated new contracts with our unions that they know we can't afford. And we are a month away from not being able to pass a balanced budget, which will force us back into receivership again, only a year after we had just left it. So that's kind of the overview. If you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would have told you I'm going to write a book one day about how we made all of this happen. And somebody explained it to me the other day really well. They said, we built this brand new swimming pool. We walked up, we were right at the edge of the pool about to dive in, and somebody came along and drained the water. Yeah. And so now as a district, we're facing this extreme financial crisis with no real superintendent and leadership in place, with a board majority that has made all of this happen in the first place.
Wow. That's that's a whole lot right there. And I think, for Jubilee and for Omar, I think Charles gets this. The previous period when OUSD was under state receivership, it's kind of a tiered process where it starts. It's like you're on super restriction, like you can't even leave your room, and then eventually you can leave your room. So the first part of it, which maybe Omar, you're familiar in Texas, you guys kind of have this, like what's happening in Houston right now, where the board loses all authority. Mm-hmm. Like you have a board, but they're just like advisory. They don't get to vote on stuff, so you can just bypass them. And eventually the board gets control back, and then eventually local control is established. But I mean, in Oakland, literally, like you have a meeting tomorrow night, and it's like I don't want to get into the details of the agenda and the Brown Act and stuff, but I will say, like I've spent all my time pretty much working in charter schools, and we've always focused and trained organizations that we work with or that I've worked for, to be compliant in terms of like governance and having a board that is compliant and above board and transparent, making sure that the boards are working with the directors and the community. I've seen the ugly stuff. I've been when I worked for CCSA, I sat through a couple of American Indian Ben Chavis board meetings, and I was flabbergasted, like crazy. So now I mean, the reason I'm bringing this up because I'm seeing some very interesting behavior from the current board, which kind of reminds me of like bad behavior charter board stuff. So can you talk a little bit more about what happened with Kyla? I mean, as much as you're willing to share, because she seemed to be a very well-liked and well-respected leader. You did have a plan. The plan was being implemented, and all of a sudden, for no reason, I didn't see any like performance evaluation stuff. She gets, released with, I think she had like a full year's left in her contract. So, I mean, whatever, that is what it is. But like, it was crazy. And it's like, all of a sudden you just fire the person that's running the school district. Nobody's like, it seemed like nobody was really like concerned.
And before he goes, just for the audience, not for you, Mike, just for transparency, I used to work closely with Kyla. We worked in the West Oakland corridor together. We served under Superintendent Wilson together, and we're pretty close. And I think she's brilliant. I just wanted to be transparent. Obviously, I have some feelings about how they did Kyla, especially how they were saying they needed somebody homegrown and from there. And then they got it, and they treated her the way that they did. So, Mike, I didn't want to take any wind out of the sails. I just need to set the board for your response.
No, it's good, and the way you captured it, David, is pretty close to what happened. And so we had just re-extended Kyla, the superintendent's contract, in the fall of 24. And we had extended her contract for 3 years. 8 months into that new 3-year extension, this new board, out of the blue, in a closed session meeting, said, we'd like to look at going a different direction.
Yeah.
And then failed to report it out to the community. So I did what I'll always do, is I made sure the community knew exactly what was happening. And, and I have the letter from the ACLU thanking me for being a whistleblower to prove it. And it was extremely offensive. So I know folks don't know our superintendent from Oakland nationally. So Dr. Kyla Johnson Trammell, after her 8 years in OUSD, leading us out of the darkness, was one of the top 5 superintendents nationally in an urban school district. Mm-hmm. She was homegrown, started off as a teacher in Oakland, grew up in Oakland. Her mother was a teacher in Oakland. And we had pulled off magic, being able to really dig the district out of a very dark place to being able to leave receivership. And out of the blue, the school board, by a 4-3 vote, decided to force her out. And again, it was offensive. It was objectionable. The only criticism I have of Kyla was she was supposed to more forcefully tell the truth on her way out. She had promised me she would have a press conference to explain exactly what had happened. And instead, she kind of just left quietly. But it was clear that it was because of the individual agendas of this 4-person school board majority that without a replacement lined up, they forced out our long-term superintendent. And it wasn't just forcing out Kyla, who was an amazing leader for us, but also the message that sent to the rest of the district has been disastrous. Because if you rip away our leader like that, and you don't even give a public statement of why, or you give false statements and make it seem like she wanted to leave, it really set up all the rest of the things that have happened. And as I look back now, the state that we're in a little over a year later, the reason they forced out Kyla is there's no way that Kyla would have let them get away with what they've done over the last year to us.
Yep. So yeah, let's definitely get to like what's happening right now. But before we do that, I want to see if any Omar, Jubilee, Charles, do you have anything to add right now, or any questions for Mike? Anything to add? Any comments?
I just want to put a bug in Mike said. Mike, thank you for being on the show. This is like outstanding. Congratulations on being a dad. Congratulations on being on the board. It's badass. Dude, this is happening all across the state of Texas. Like this exact scenario. So it just happened in El Paso Independent School District where like we had a superintendent. She was well liked. People thought she was doing a great job. And then like, bam, this is going in a different direction. And like totally out of nowhere, someone else comes in. And that on top of state takeovers are happening all over the place. So you'll probably allude to this later, but my biggest question is like, I'm sensing a pattern and you may have a much better understanding of what's going on than I do. So I'd love to hear your hot take or hypothesis as to why this is not only happening in California, but across Texas as well.
So I'm biased, but I always think that Oakland is a very unique situation. And so one of the ways to explain it is what I see going on looks very similar to what I see happening nationally with the Trump administration, except the people here just claim different politics. Another part of it is we've seen a complete breakdown of our institutions and any guardrails that we assume exists. You know, our county superintendent should have stepped in 6 months ago when you look at the numbers, but she's refused to. You know, where's our attorney general in California, where Oakland is his home district? You know, his wife is our assembly member. Where are any of these folks that have allowed it to get to this point? And then we also have nationally a trend in a number of places from different political perspectives to try to focus on school boards as a way to achieve a certain agenda. And so what it's felt like here for us in Oakland is we've really had this perfect storm, especially coming out of the pandemic, where a lot of our community groups no longer exist. But I think it's, you know, one of the things that's made it hard to get some of the message out in Oakland is because people do see this happening a lot of different places. And so, you know, if I was going to talk to my mother about it, my mother would say it's some of the breakdown of democracy just overall.
Right.
And, you know, the reason I was able to get to this position, you know, 15 years ago, I was Coach Mike on a playground. And really the way we've been able to make real changes in our school district is by using the rule of law, understanding it, and using it to leverage policy decisions. Once that breaks down, when it just becomes this free-for-all, it's just really, really problematic. You know, the last way I want to explain it just through anecdotes is I'm very close to, you know, possibly reporting our general counsel, our lead lawyer in the district, to the Bar Association. Because if I can't get the lead lawyer in the district to enforce the law or enforce legislation, I don't have any other means as a school board director to really represent my community. And so I think the antidote is always engagement and getting people involved, really gaming up our knowledge of in all of these different lanes. But it is this huge problem, but I just can't stress enough. You know, I see some of these other districts where different groups have taken over the school board. And here what we have is a bunch of people with fake virtue signals who came in from the outside, riding on other people's coattails. And because not enough people have said no to them, they've been able to dismantle all of the gains that we had made.
Nobody's showing up to meetings anymore. I remember the boardroom at the previous boardroom on was it 2nd Street or wherever it was?
2nd Avenue.
You know, and it was a smaller boardroom and it was always packed and the line out the door. And now it's held in this big cavernous cafeteria auditorium, and it's like there's nobody. And you know, a lot of the business happens after like 10 p.m. So there's no community there. It definitely feels like a breakdown between community and the board, which is a major red flag. So I want to ask you.
I think just the other thing on this, because I think it's just really important for all of us, is the accountability component. You know, if the school board is not going to hold the superintendent accountable, there's nobody else who can.
Right.
But in the end, for the school board, The only people who can hold the school board accountable are the voters. Mm-hmm. And it is sad that we're broken down to that bare minimum. But if that's all we have to do a much better job of holding everyone accountable in these election cycles when they come up. Otherwise, there really won't be a way to change things.
So that's a perfect segue to this question, which I didn't tell you we were going to ask, but I think it's fair game because you were talking about accountability. And so who are the school board members accountable to? You could say, well, people that supported the campaign. So it, like, historically, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, in order to win an election, you have to have backers. And sometimes that comes in the form of the union support. And you at one time were like more closely aligned with the Oakland Education Association and their, you know, whatever CTA and their political, you know, arms or whatever you want to call it. But now it seems like you're the odd man out. You know, you're kind of like out there on an island unto yourself. So politics have shifted. You've generally stayed like pretty stable on like your platform, your ideas, your principles. Meanwhile, everything in the background's moving, and all of a sudden, this person that was over here is over here, and the people that were over here are over here now, right? And you have an election coming up.
So it's been wild. I can openly say that it's been wild. I really agree with that. I haven't changed what I believe in, and if anything, I'm happy and proud that my base of support has actually grown. But what's happened is we've had some voices and some groups that have just gone off different directions in different ways. And so for us in Oakland, we really did crack the local electoral code by flipping all 7 school board seats. We did that by making school closures the wedge in the primary issue. But then once we elected a new board, we ended that policy of school closures that existed. You know, I worked really hard to help change state laws to give a local school board more control over the decisions of charter schools. And those things have both paid real dividends. And we have the district on the right track. But we have some individuals in some leadership positions that have gone their own way. I would say we have school board directors now in Oakland that have a conflict of interest. I don't think you can be a regional director, a paid regional director for the California Teachers Association and be on the Oakland School Board and vote on Oakland Education Association contracts. It's a clear conflict of interest. And so for me and my family, it's been wild because I'm an OEA baby. My mom was a 40-year teacher in Oakland. And but some individuals in leadership in that union decided they wanted to go against me, run a candidate against me, blame things on me. And it's kind of created this artificial division. It's working a lot better now because the numbers are the numbers and people can see what's happening. But this is why we need more people engaged and involved, you know, and again, some people get mad at me because as much as I can, I stand in front of a camera without much of a filter and try to get the information out. But we need more people doing that. And the other, I think, big thing in Oakland, especially when it comes to voting in school board elections, is I feel like I won the charter wars here in Oakland. So in my time on the school board, because we've been able to change the state law,
you did.
We've been able to reduce charter saturation by about 25% in the last few years. And we no longer have the highest rate of charter schools. And we were able to do that, not by coming in and saying we're going to close every charter school, but creating a process that worked better for our community. And so now that that's happened and it's taken away that division, we should be poised now to finally have these community conversations. And that's not what's happening. So the last factor, I'm sorry for being long-winded.
That's fine.
Is currently,
yes, dog, do your thing.
I'm the only school board director currently that's from Oakland. That's a graduate of Oakland Public Schools, the only one out of all 7 of us. And so there's a real lack of connection. And I question, why are these people even on the school board? I actually think they have a bunch of individual agendas, and it's been this confluence that's put us in this situation. I almost wish there was an invisible hand controlling things, because at least there'd be some, some continuity
to the plan, a vision,
direction. And it's been this one-off madness, And so the good thing is we have elections in November. I'm up for re-election, and both the board president and the board vice president are up for re-election.
Oh, wow.
So if I'm re-elected, and if either the president or vice president is not re-elected, we will have a new board majority in January, and we can get back on track. Our problem is, though, first we got to win those elections, but how do we get from June to January with what's been going on? And so
you might lose. Oh my God.
This is really the importance of elections, the importance of accountability. And if people pay attention in Oakland, and probably in a lot of cities, the choice of on the school board, especially with these large issues, really decides the way that body's going to go for the next 2 years. And it is our only way to have a course correction if necessary, and to hold people accountable for the votes and the decisions they've made.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Man, definitely. This election is going to be very critical to the future of the district. And I agree. Like, can you even get there before the wheels totally fall off the bus? But I wanted to make just provide a little opportunity for anybody. Omar, Jubilee, Charles, do you have any questions at this point?
Yeah, I do. I have a comment and a question. And also for Omar and Ju, David, Mike, and I are playing inside baseball. We've kind of
sorry.
No. I'm just saying.
But like, fascinating, man.
Every episode we have like the straight man, the common person. So if any of this stuff is confusing, ask so we can build the context. I'm going to build a little bit of national context, and then I'm going to ask Mike a question directly. Memphis is going through the same thing. Sarah Carpenter, who you all, she's like a mother to me. She runs the Memphis Lift there, but now the community orgs on the ground are now, for the first time that I've ever heard, are on the side of, we want the state to come in because it's just such chaos. We need an adult in the room now. And so I've been summoned to Memphis. I'll be there either in a few weeks. I think maybe about 3 weeks to go in, and I'm looking at their data now, and they wanted me to come speak. But this is, like you said, this is something that's happening across the country. I'm in Chicago right now. Our mayor has very close ties to the union, and it was a big controversy, and the money's different here. I was going to say something to Mike, though, and again, Mike and I have had our battles. I think we do have a respect for each other. I don't want to speak for you, Mike. I respect Mike. I don't know how you feel about me, but we've always been cordial. But I always said, even during that time, there was information that you weren't privy to, and then you become a board member, and then it's like, oh, here are the books. I know that the union ran a lot of this stuff saying, we got the money to do these raises. We got the money to do this, that, and the third. We're gonna open that up. They got what they wanted. And now the reports are starting to come out that the money is not there and that the state is knocking back on the door. So Mike, what was that like for you once you got in? And just for the record, y'all, Mike ran a few times, like he didn't give up. He's been in it. And I got to do the thing. They do it in Chicago. You do it in Oakland. You got to list out where you went to school at. I went to Hawthorne, which was year round. They closed down. Then I went to Lafayette. I went to Westlake. And then I went to Emory, which is not technically in Oakland. But it's across the street. But anyway, you got to do that. You got to run your stuff down today because ain't nobody on the board from Oakland now. So it's important to ask those questions. But Mike, once you got in and you got to uncover these rocks and you got to kind of dive in stuff, and then you got closer with Dr. Johnson Trammell, what shifted for you? Because a lot of people were really surprised, right? When it's like, wait, is Mike beefing with the union? Like people were surprised, and I got your back, but I'm just curious to hear how that played out for you.
Wow. I got to go through. So first, Crocker Highlands, McChesney, Skyline class of 91.
There you go.
It goes Jay-Z.
It is
Pac and Biggie.
It has been wild for me. So I didn't break with anyone. And so, the leadership in the two teachers union decided to run a candidate against me in 2022 and launch a smear campaign against me. Then when they went on the strike in 2023, even though I put an offer on the table for them as board president of 17%, most of it front loaded, they marched on my family house twice in 7 days.
What does that mean, they marched on your house?
That means they led a protest right to my family house.
Jesus, man, what?
My mother's
Oakland, man, it's a town.
My mother's house. Shit. That she was a 50-year member of OEA, and so this is what they decided. And all I got to say is, in 2023, I delivered a historic contract to them, like I had always promised. And so there's some individuals in leadership in certain places that have their own agendas. So this time, this is really a failure of the school board. So I'm going to tell a really quick version. I haven't been able to tell the real story any place, but this is why I'm going to write a book one day. So when we were doing budget adoption last June with this school board majority, going into the year, the school board sets the agenda for the following year. This board was told repeatedly by both myself and the chief business officer that no money was being set aside for a new OEA contract because you need to plan for these contracts. The board intentionally voted for a contract with no money set aside. Then, 3 months later, as negotiations started to heat up, this school board majority first voted to offer them $0 because we didn't have any. Because what was happening was there were a couple of school board directors who were colluding with the teachers union leadership to try to engineer an endless strike. Because if you don't have any money put away, you can't offer a raise. And if you offer $0, of course the teachers union is going to have to go on strike. And even when they do, you'll still have $0 to offer them. Now, at some point in February, the California Teachers Association must have reached out to their regional director, or regional director with them, our school board director, Van Cedric Williams, and said, what are you doing? You're not there to play games and offer $0. You're there to offer everything the union wants. A couple of days later, closed session at a school board meeting, Director Williams and Vice President Batchelor walk in with the demand list from the teachers union that they had printed off the website and said, here, approve this. And by a 4-3 vote, the school board voted to approve a contract that will cost us $55 million next year. Then the superintendent and general counsel actually made that offer and put it on the table to OEA, knowing that we have no money to be able to afford it.
My God.
Now, that all happened on February 22nd. Still now, 3 months later, the board has still not approved a final contract because nobody has brought it forward because everyone knows we can't afford it. So we are caught in this limbo because of their collusion trying to engineer things, when if they would have done the things the right way, we could have put enough money aside each year to get OEA a reasonable raise. And that was the way we used to budget and do things. But this board has gone a different direction.
Wow. Man. That was a lot to take in right there. Woo. Yeah, I mean, so this is right where
now,
things
just let me recap, because right now there was a tentative agreement that then OEA members voted on and approved. But that tentative agreement has not been costed out. It was just sent to the county to be costed out and still needs to come back to the school board for a final vote of approval. And this is something that should take a month at the most. Really, you cost out a contract before you put the offer on the table. This is about 3 levels of madness that it's really hard to peel the layers of the onion. And it's a complete failure by everyone, every place. And this is where I include like the county superintendent, who should have weighed in forcefully and said, you can't afford this. If you go through with this, you are automatically going to make me have to take over your finances and tear up this agreement. And here we are.
Mike, do you think people secretly want the state to, like because the level of just of inefficient and ineffectiveness Is somebody just smarter than all of us know and are trying to set the stage so that the state can actually come in and be adults in this situation? Because the money's not there. We know that the money is not there, which is why we're here. And for the record, somebody was asking offline, that was not Kyla. This is a different superintendent. Kyla's gone. So
so no, I've been trying to get the county superintendent to do her job since November. And the first thing, one of the other problems we have just in general is nobody understands how the budget process works in OUSD or in most large school districts. Whether it's people aren't comfortable with numbers, don't know how a budget process works, don't know the laws involved, don't really understand the connection between our budget and the services that we deliver. And this is like a specific knowledge set that it makes it hard for people to fully plug in. But we were on track in June of last year because we left state receivership, which meant not only did we pay off the state loan, we passed what they call a fiscal systems audit, which was outside auditors certifying we knew how to run our finances. But when you refuse to take action, when the county superintendent doesn't use her authority under the education code, under state law, to step in when it's clear we can't meet our financial commitments, it's been this complete breakdown. And so the only one who's been asking for somebody to come in and provide oversight is me. So this has been bizarro world for me. I fought for a very long time to get my school district free. We're finally free. Now I have to advocate for an outsider to come step in and save us. I had to call the CEO of FICMAT, our like education auditors in California, to make sure I understood the numbers correctly.
Did Mike Hutchison have a conversation with FICMAT? I just remember how you used to feel about them. So I'm just
yes. And
baseball, y'all. I'm sorry.
But that's what it is. Like, I'm still getting used to being perceived as a voice of reason. That wasn't my role before,
right?
And I haven't really shifted that much. And so as I got into the school board, the thing I found out on the school board is I didn't think it was possible for us to leave receivership and to do things a different way. And I learned that there actually was. And I learned that the school board is actually the place where we can make things happen through the policies that we create. And so now, since I've been on the school board and I have the proof of concept it was working, it's that much more devastating now that this school board has been allowed to just dismantle all of it. And in the end, the numbers are the numbers. And so when you don't understand how things work and you don't follow the requirements that are set in creating a yearly budget cycle, it's real easy to get off track, especially when you don't have that much margin of error to begin with. And we can see how quickly now, I mean, not only are we one of very few districts to ever be in receivership in California, we're about to be the first district any place ever to regain local control and lose it within 1 year.
Yeah. That's history right there. I've got a question for you about some of the numbers, but before we do that, wanted to see if anybody else had a question for Mike at this point.
Omar and Jude, y'all got to jump in because we can definitely just.
Yeah, what do you got? What do you got?
I'm just listening and learning. This is very intriguing. I'm in Prince George's County Public Schools in Maryland, so I have been learning about the ins and outs of school boardisms. And so this is really interesting to hear. And then it has me reflecting on my home state, New York City. I'm from Brooklyn, and we ain't got no board in New York City. And I'm like, dag, do we need to transition to mayoral control where you don't have the school board. Like, I don't know. I'm like, well, what works? What's less messy? What's more productive? What's more effective? What's
and
more
Jude, and mention your boy's historic win into the. You got a board member, so
yes,
you got a future school board member.
I do. Yes, he's going to be sworn in on June 26th. He will be the 46th student member of the Board of Education for Prince George's County Public Schools. Yeah, he ran a campaign and everything. So
and that's what we need. We need more quality people stepping into these roles. You know, one of the things, thankfully, that happened this year is the Governor Newsom signed a bill that finally allowed school board pay to be raised across the state of California.
Yeah.
So I had been receiving $800 a month. Now it's up to $3,000 a month, but that's still not enough, especially since I don't have staff, especially in the 45th largest city in the country. But we need to make some of those structural changes, but we need to make sure we have quality people in these positions. Now, quality can be real subjective, but in my opinion, we need people that are connected to the community. We need people that have a real understanding, and what they don't understand, a willingness to learn. I strongly believe we, as a school board in Oakland, we needed to get rid of that past board that had us on a death spiral. But with them, the arguments were over policy. This current board, we don't even have arguments over policy. It doesn't even get that far. And so we have to be able to do better for us than what we have. And not every replacement is a good replacement, but it's still a positive that we made this change to get out of the rut. We just haven't found the right equilibrium yet going forward. So the more we can gain people up, like I love to see more people choosing to run. We need more people like us involved. And for me, I firmly believe we need more people to take it seriously and bring a level of professionalism to it. You know, I am responsible for $1 billion a year. We have 34,000 students, over 6,000 staff. Oakland's huge, but just in my district, I represent over 50,000 people. That's a responsibility that I would hope more people would take seriously as they're looking to move into these roles.
Yep.
What's your take on like appointed board members versus elected? I know in my county, we at some point there was a hybrid.
That's a good question.
Some were appointed and some were elected. And it's a mixed review, because some people feel like those that are appointed, they have their allegiances, they have their loyalties, so they're like more inflexible and they come in with a specific agenda, versus those that are elected, they really want to appeal to their constituency. So they might have an agenda, but they're able to be more flexible because they really want to make sure that they're coming across as, I'm accomplishing what my constituents want. So what's your take?
I'm a firm believer in local voter control of our school boards. I'm philosophically opposed to the takeover laws. And I know for us in Oakland, that really devastated our district being taken over in 2003, where every decision that was being made, you know, for us in Oakland, that takeover coincided with the California charter law, which led to a proliferation of charter schools in Oakland. And really, our unified school district was no longer unified. Now, even separate of that specific decision, the fact that it didn't come from local control meant it was never going to work in the end. And it was never oriented to really serve the community. But we can have poor people in leadership every place. And so one of the stories of Oakland is just failed leadership across the board. Our elected officials, union leadership, and our nonprofit industrial complex. We have really just been failed by the leadership. And a lot of in Oakland, we had this gap in leadership where my parents' generation, the folks of the 60s and 70s, for a lot of reasons, we didn't really cultivate that next generation of leadership. Some of it is because of what happened to the Black Panthers in Oakland. There's some other folks like me turned away from what we saw our parents doing because we had been to enough meetings growing up. And
we also murdered the first Black superintendent as well.
It's all of those things kind of together where it's created this vacuum. And again, this isn't rocket science. And so you don't need to spend 15 years studying OUSD's finances like I have to be a successful school board director. We need people who are invested, who care, even a common sense approach. And hopefully as people get gamed up, one of the things I've learned is the difference between my personal politics and policy. I've also learned how to use policy to really implement changes. And so again, when I first met David and Dr. Cole, I was known as the anti-charter guy in Oakland and a lot of places, because that's how we had to go and fight in a large degree. We learned some sophistication over the years, and we learned where the power really sat to get the kind of decisions made that we wanted to see happen. So having said all of that, I could have never imagined how much I could actually achieve being a school board director in OUSD as well. And it's been, even though it's been crazy, it's been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done.
Yeah, and it's not over yet. Omar, you're cooking something up. I see you're taking notes. What you got?
I don't know, man. Like, part of me wonders, back at what Doc was saying, was whether or not this is a group of incredibly intelligent people who are aligning themselves towards this kind of like systemic takeover, or if it's just stone cold ineptitude, like just stone cold stupidity. And it's sometimes really hard for me to break through those two, ultimately, because I've seen the people at the top and like, man, they like dumb as hell. And they will oftentimes line pockets and do horribly corrupt things in order to benefit themselves and be like, whatever, dude, at the expense of the school district and kids, like, and I'm out of here, whatever, no big deal. Like, I am, like, our superintendent, Mike, went to jail for amongst like cheating scandals. His Al Capone of it all was no bid contracting that he was giving to his friends and like taking kickbacks. So
Damn.
Mike, it's hard for me to reconcile what's what, because it's like, I don't personally like publicly elected boards. Like, I'm a pretty democratic cat, and I'm all for free elections, but I've seen school boards be this like placeholder for people with incredible political ambitions that have nothing to do with kids. I can see where appointed boards by the state become like inherently corrupt, because it's just like a cronyism situation, right? You yourself are a publicly elected board member, and you're having to call the AG to see if something can be done about the legality of what's going on. That's crazy. I don't know, man. Like, I'm saying, you seem like a pretty smart, capable guy. If you could wave a magic wand, and like, look, we all know, like, oh, if I could make a magic wand, I'd make everybody care about kids, and there goes corruption, and we'd be riding on rainbows and unicorns. I'm saying, like, practicality. If you could wave a magic wand, how would you start fixing these things?
So
yeah, that's great. That's question 3. So thank you. We're good.
So, thankfully, I have the period from or the 2 years of 2023 and then 2024, when I was the board president and then vice president, when we took the steps to leave receivership, developed a restructuring plan. I really feel like I have a proof of concept that I didn't have before. So I know it can be done. And what I've seen happen, I don't have a high opinion of the intelligence of
nor do I.
Some of my colleagues on the board. I'll say it like that. I also think that there's some of them who are mean, nasty people.
Yeah.
And and also there's a difference. Even before I was on the board, when we didn't the people I worked with, we didn't feel like we had any ally on the school board. We still set up meetings with school board members and senior leadership in the district to try to push our point, get information. We were fully engaged, and the people in those positions took meetings with us. That doesn't even happen now. And so I actually, and in the end here, the numbers are the numbers. So there is no second set of books. There is no other opinion on how things are. It's not a matter of opinion, it's a matter of fact. And so for us here, it's all coming to an end because we can't pass a balanced budget for next year, which is required by law.
Yeah, neither can anybody, to be perfectly honest.
But the thing we have is 2 years ago, we were outperforming all of our neighbors. We weren't in crisis 2 years ago, even though other people were. And this has been self-inflicted by this school board, who then hired an unqualified, incapable superintendent, who they've now extended for another year, even though she hasn't delivered on one thing. There's not even a superintendent plan.
She has delivered. What she delivered on was listening to the union. See, I can say things you can't say, right? Like she listened to those people that said we need X, Y, and Z, and she goes and
she acquiesced.
But not really. She has her own agenda. What she did, which is a second year with a salary of $367,000.
That's crazy.
Just selfish.
2 years, 3 years as superintendent, you're pretty good afterwards to move
and
on.
She didn't even meet the basic qualifications to even be interviewed. This what they, at best, our superintendent is the school board's useful fool. And so it has been, and so now that we don't have staff even doing the basics, or 2 months ago, the head of HR was moved over to head the finances because we don't have anyone there. She forced out
those are two totally different skill sets. Those are different things.
Forced out the chief of staff in December and hired a former council member with no experience, who now has been forced out of the district herself. It's been
Wait, who was hired? I mean,
Lynette,
it's public.
Who's that?
Lynette McElhaney.
Ah, wow.
And so what we've had is, in my opinion, a series of perfect storms. Each one should have never happened. And it's all hit at the same time. And so, and this has been going on now for 16 months. So if the community would have stood up a year ago, like when our superintendent was first forced out last April, then we could have had a chance to avoid a lot of this. But since there hasn't been enough resistance and we're 16 months deep, we have to pass a balanced budget by the end of June. There has been no work done on it. We have a standing deficit. There's no way that gets done.
It's insane.
And people aren't even talking about it. And that's before we even talk about, even if somebody steps in and takes over with this deficit, that means immediately $50 million in cuts, which we probably can't do even immediately, which means we'll be forced to take a loan, which puts us back into receivership. And all of this could have been avoided if we would have just had basic budget management and financial.
Yep. That was another piece of the original. I forgot about that. The original takeover by the state was associated with the $100 million loan that the district just got done paying off.
What happened was actually it was a $30 million loan. Then when the state took over, they ran up the loan all the way to $100 million
on your tab.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And so the biggest loan ever in California history to a school district. And that's insane. Yes, we finally paid that off last year. And actually, we paid it off a year early because I passed a resolution to pay it off early because that was a requirement of getting free.
That was one of the conditions. That's right.
And the last piece that I kind of left out in our framing of where we were is that's why we had the restructuring work planned to coincide with regaining local control. Because it was never just about getting back local control. It was about getting back local control so the community could finally decide on how we want to build our district going forward. Mm-hmm. And that's what's been taken away from us. This opportunity that we haven't even had since 2003.
Yep. So we are pretty much up on time. I want to give the co-host here just a second to if you have any closing thoughts that you want to put on the table, and then we'll let you finish it off, Mike. Yeah.
I have a question, and my closing thought is cheers to you on your resilience. I'd love to know what your core values are. You ain't got to answer today, but I'm like, you got to have some real strong core values, right? And be integrous, resilient, like, because you're still here, you're still doing it. And so hats off to you for being a pillar, obviously in this work. My question is, I wanted clarity around why the superintendent was pushed out, and I don't know if you'd be able to answer it. Nobody knows.
I can answer.
Years like of service.
Because she had common sense, the numbers didn't add up, and she didn't go along with their plan. And when we were covering Chicago, and I told you the same things that happened here when Mayor Brandon Johnson, because that was still mayor appointed, did not approve that huge loan here. They got rid of a very astute superintendent, brought in somebody that rubber stamped it, and now we're dealing with what we're dealing with here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right.
Something Mike can say. So
Omar, closing thoughts, my friend.
I want to give Mike a huge thanks, a hell of a perspective. I appreciate the detail and the nuance and what you were explaining, because it's easy for us to kind of say, hey, this is going on all over the place, and see some similarities. Damn, man, there's a lot of shit going on in Oakland, dude.
Crazy.
It's actually insane. But it just goes back to what Jubilee said and our audience says. It's like, Mike, you may be one in a million, man. Like, you're just this like badass dude who has like a sense of justice for kids. And I just wish there were a lot more of you. Thank you, Ben.
Charles.
Yeah, my final thought rolled into a comment. So one, you let us know all the ways we can support you, Mike. I just want to let you have an open invitation to come back here anytime.
Yeah.
You reach out to David or reach out to me. We will always make the time for you. We have to find time to spar at some point because it's just what we do. We'll be old men doing that. But I'm saying this now. I will be donating to your campaign. When did you think that was happening, Mike? I got you, man. But
make sure he actually donates, okay?
I will. I'll show it. I think because
I thought it was a trash can.
But here's what. But I've been quiet a lot of this, right? Because we wanted Mike to talk. But I've always said this, even when me and Mike were really opposed, and we still are opposed in a lot of ways. I believe in parent choice, but I always felt that when Mike had the data in front of him, he was going to do what was best for kids. And right now, what we didn't talk about is 3 out of 10 kids in Oakland, only less than 3 out of 10 are reading on grade level. We just did our study with our young people that cross charter and traditional that showed those numbers, but double that think that they are reading on grade level. So more like 7, 8 out of 10 think that they are. Would love to talk more with you about that. But I have to echo what Jubilee said, because people don't do this unless people are going to those meetings, because those meetings are fucking crazy. And they've been crazy for a while, and they burn you out. I've had the pleasure of meeting Mike's mother. We've all spent time there, and Mike, you a special dude. I'm good at not being at those places at 2 a.m., but I'm a man of my word. So you let us know the ways that you want us to be supportive. You let us know. I want to engage you in actual conversations about kids and literacy in Oakland, because that's really important. And just thank you for fighting a good fight and not. You remind me of an old school 90s liberal that's like, I didn't leave the left. I think everything that I've always thought, the left has left me. And it feels like that's like, you're like, I didn't leave union support. I didn't leave saying that we should have a strong union with strong benefits for teachers. Y'all are trying to spend money we don't have. And you're lying to people about it. So those are my final thoughts and my comments wrapped up in it, man. But seriously, I hope you felt like you had a home here, and I hope you felt respected, and give us our marching orders before, and then David can close us out.
Yeah, real quick. Definitely want to know how we can support you in your campaign. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I think Dr. Cole is definitely right to call out the, across the city of Oakland, the real issue that we should be focusing on is what's happening in our schools and our classrooms with the education levels of our children. And when you have this like total like distracted thing happening at the highest levels of governance, like when was the last time I've seen an academic report out of the superintendent, right? That should be the conversation about what's happening with our young people at schools, academically, socially, emotionally, because there are good things happening, but it's just not part of what's happening at that level, and that should be the core focus. In addition to like fiscal responsibility, transparency, all that stuff. So, thanks for coming on, Mike. I want to give you a minute or two to wrap us up, and be sure to let us know how we can support you.
Yeah, thank you, and I'll definitely be following up with that, especially with the election coming up in November. And we always just need more people engaging and paying attention to what happens in Oakland. So for me, I love Oakland and I love OUSD. OUSD gave me everything growing up, not just a world-class elementary education that got me to UC Berkeley and my brother to the Ivy Leagues, but since my mom was a teacher, literally the roof over my head. And part of me has been heartbroken over the last 15 years, where I had to shift from working directly with youth to and fighting for quality within the school building to just fighting to keep the doors open. And we were poised with our restructuring plan, also had transformational school redesign. It was really the culmination of all of this work. And for me, it's in my blood. My parents met working at a freedom school in Mississippi in the late 60s. My little white mother marched Selma to Montgomery. I am the direct descendant, 3 times great grandson of James Hutchinson. You can go visit the Hutchinson house on Edisto Island. It's in my blood, and I'm always going to fight. I have a certain set of skills that allows me to be able to fight in this sort of way. And now I've had a lot of the community really invest in me and help put me in this position. And so until I'm not here anymore, I'm going to keep swinging for the fences. And once we get back control of our schools for the community, that's when we as a community can finally build the kind of schools that we all want to see. And until we can get to that point, it's always going to be a struggle. And we know that the students that look like us are always going to get the short end of the stick first. And so this is always about that larger fight. It's why I'm not in the city council or those other places. I got this one lane that I know well, and I'm ride or die. And so as we get more people involved and as we can really create more success, I'm also really excited about the ripples it can send out across the country, because Oakland has an elevated platform, just like being able to talk on this podcast, to be able to talk about the lessons of Oakland. Like what happened in Katrina in New Orleans, a lot of the people who did that in New Orleans were in Oakland first and learned a lot of those tactics. And it really happens in Oakland first. So if we can kind of be a wave in another direction, then that spills out to other places as well. And so it's exciting. It's exciting if we can start to bridge some of these gaps or have a better understanding of the places where charters and public schools can work together, along with the places where we're always going to be in competition. And how do we set this up as a place where we're doing better by the next generation? And so I'm excited. And the last thing, people don't get to see, but I get stopped almost every day on the street by people, most of them who I don't know, thanking me and showing me love. And so no matter what you might see at a school board meeting or you hear out of some of these folks' mouths, I get love from the community, and that keeps me going no matter what the fight is.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us today. Hang out for a minute or two backstage when we finish. But thanks everybody for joining South Star Classroom episode 237 with special guest director Mike Hutchinson. The man is definitely a believer in OUSD and a believer in the town of Oakland. See you all. Peace.